All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast, hosted as always by the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network, coming at you live on the YouTube channel. Brant, last week we were here, same time, same place, and we came at everybody with a mock draft, Dynasty Startup mock draft breakdown. Kind of talk through a recent mock that we've done on the Fantasy Holics page. This week we figured why not come through and start on our quarterback rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. The quarterback rankings, we both consensusly talked and said that should be pretty well set in stone. I mean, obviously with some additions, injuries throughout the offseason and training camp may fluctuate some of these rankings here. But we both felt pretty confident with the starters or how the offense had shaped up. First off, I do want to say happy Memorial Day, everybody. Enjoy your kickoff to summer. Make sure you guys get out there, give thanks to those who have served and who have the fallen soldiers. Hope you guys all enjoyed your Memorial Day. I know I just did. We grilled out a little bit. But it's going to be fun doing these rankings. Last week was a good kickoff, getting right into this football season.
Yeah, this fat boy also was poolside quite a bit today. It's probably not a good thing that both of you and I, being big fat fatties, have pools to be laying out in every day this summer. But I will say, Brent, tan fat looks a heck of a lot better than pale fat.
I'm just glad I'm not burning this year. I'm getting a little. You can actually see it. I actually got a little color going. It's not just this ginger looking like a rock lobster.
It's early. We haven't hit them 90-degree days yet. You're going to burn. All right. Without further ado, Brent, let's get them bibs on. It's time to eat. All right, Brand. I never get tired of that intro, seeing that flying high kick from the fat guy there. If you're listening to us on one of the fine podcasting sites, you need to jump over on YouTube and at least see the intro just one time. It's worth a laugh, if nothing else. So, Brant, before we get into these quarterback rankings, I think it's imperative that you and I talk about the fact that at some point we're going to put our two fat heads together, rub some fat cheeks, beards together, and come up with the consensus top 12 for our quarterbacks prior to the start of the season. But to get to the point where we are now, I know you and I have both spent a decent amount of time looking over the history of last season, additions to each team, what we think the trends for each team are going to be. And that led us to where we are today, where we were able to rank our top 12. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see how these shake out. I know we talked a little bit prior to going live tonight, but there's going to be some big differences that you and I are going to have to work through to get on the same page here at some point.
Yeah, as I just put, Jimbo, no, they are not our actual silhouettes. I'm not sure if either one of us could get our legs up that high with that flying kick. But it's pretty close. It's pretty close. But yeah, I just was looking over my rankings here, and what was crazy doing these the rankings and our projected points is 20 points separate my 12th to my 20th quarterback here. So not a huge difference, not a huge drop off in them. So it will be interesting to see where we're at with all of those and how it moves on. Consensus, we may have to go live on that because I know you and me have gone back and forth with some words and some cell phone exchanges, throwing up against the wall and everything else. So maybe we'll have to go live and let these people see what we go through when we get to chit chat and try to find our consensus. But yeah, we'll definitely get one put out on our page and share it over to the Fantasy Holics to make sure that everyone has, the Fatboyz rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brant, with your big belly and my big belly and my height, it's just going to be a lot of slap fighting if you and I get together in person and fight. So maybe we don't do that, but at some point the consensus rankings will come out.
And now these are our rankings for this season coming up. It's not our consensus dynasty rankings yet.
Correct.
That will also come, but right now this is just for the upcoming season. I want to make sure we do make a point of that.
Correct. All right. So what we're going to do, Brant, is we're going to go 1 through 12, but we're going to start in reverse order. We'll start at 12 and work our way up to the top, see where we differ on some things, see where we're similar. So without further ado, why don't you tell me who you have at 12?
At number 12, I have Aaron Rodgers. I look for a resurgence this year. He's got probably one of the best receiving cores he's had in a while. And I do say core because he has had, when he had Adams, he did have probably one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL. But I think the core he has right now is one of his best receiving cores, along with his backfield there with Breece Hall when he comes back healthy, and Bam Knight. He has a lot of good pass catching options. I have him scored at roughly around 296 points is my projection points for him. Like I said, between him and number 20, it's literally a 20-point difference. So those names right there could really fluctuate down there. But right now, I really like Rodgers coming forward this year.
Yeah, so for me, I think Rodgers does have an uptick over his pass catchers last year. I'm not sure as a career whole, because you got to remember he's got Garrett Wilson, which is better than anything he had on his team last year, but he just brought over the rest of his team from last year. And then a healthy Aaron Jones. I still, in a passing game, I still take over Breece Hall right now. We'll see how that goes over the course of the season. But Rodgers was at 14 for me, so he's right there on the fringe. Like you said, my guys 12 through like 15 are pretty similar as well. Thankfully, I did get to go back to the drawing board and get one name that I initially came out with at 12 out of my top 12 because I wasn't as comfortable with that. But at 12, I have Kirk Cousins. I'm looking for another big year between him and Justin Jefferson, as well as a nice rookie year from Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson's going to hit the ground running. I've got him for 303 points this year, coming in safely at my quarterback 12.
Which is actually funny. Now that you say Cousins, and I'm sitting here looking, the only difference I have between Cousins and Rodgers is I do have Cousins for more passing yards, but I have Rodgers for a few more passing touchdowns. That's literally the only difference. The rushing and the rushing touchdowns are like this close to being similar. So it's funny. I got Cousins there sitting at 14. So same place that you have Rodgers is where I have Cousins.
There you go.
Who do you have at number 11 there?
So for me at number 11, I've got a guy on my top 10 that I know you didn't put in just because you wouldn't have been able to pronounce his name. I've got Tua Tagovailoa. I've got him going to I've got him going to score 302.36 points this year. Again, he's got explosive weapons with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. A couple guys, all he's got to do is get the ball into their hands, let them do the work afterwards. And in addition to a lot of speed out of that backfield for little dump-off passes coming out. I look for Tua to have a really good year this year.
Yeah, I have Tua down there quite a bit. I think he's at 19 for me. I don't have him have a very explosive year. I'm not sure he plays the whole season. That team scares me. I do have him scouted for 17 games, but he was really hard for me to put full projections on. But I do have him down there. At my number 11, I have Trevor Lawrence. And that's I got him at 301. He's my first quarterback scoring over 300 points. And I have him throwing for 3,857 yards. I expect an uptick in his volume this year, but I expect him to level off a little bit better this year and be a little more. It's hard to say average, but when you really think about your QB 11 and your QB 19 or 18, they're within 20 points of each other, 22 points of each other. I expect him to really fall into his own and be right there at the number 11 spot. I know he gets the upgrade with Ridley and with his receiving core.
Yeah, I've got Trevor Lawrence a little bit higher. I'll talk about why when we get up there. But go ahead with your number 10 as well, Brant.
Number 10 is this is one of the most shocking ones to me. And I expect a complete bounce back for him this year. He gets to play the whole year. I have Deshaun Watson inside at my number 10 spot. I expect his rushing to I only have him rushing. I do have him rushing for 389 yards. I expect him to use his legs a little bit this year, not as much as we have seen in the past there in Houston. But I love his passing, his receiving core that he does have there. The fact that Nick Chubb is still there is probably the reason I don't have him even higher. But yeah, I expect Cleveland to be playing from behind quite a bit this year. But I do like the receiving core that he has. So I have Deshaun Watson at my number 10 spot.
Hey, if he's using his legs more, that means masseuses are going to have to use their hands more. I'm just saying, those things go together.
And if he goes and gets, gets caught at the massage parlor there, then I'll have to move him back down to my rankings.
Same, because I've got him coming up too. At my number 10, I have Dak Prescott. I've got Dak having a really nice year this year, 4,158 yards, 28 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, adding another 4 touchdowns on the ground. I have him coming in like 0.8 of a point higher than I had Tua. I've got him at 303.02. So by the finest of margins, I was able to get Dak Prescott into my top 10. So, there we go. And then at number 9, I have another high flying quarterback, Lamar Jackson, Brant. I'm interested to see how different you and I are on Lamar here. The rumors are coming out. They're gonna scale back his running, put an uptick in his passing, which you and I have always said here, we're not huge on Lamar Jackson's passing ability. He's fun for fantasy just because he runs well. I have him throwing for 3,365 yards, 22 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I'm calling BS on the running. I still have him going for 750 yards and 5 touchdowns, coming in at 303.6 points. So again, him and Dak separated by just a couple tenths of a point there.
Number 9, I have Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
I have him for 3,200 passing yards. Obviously, I think I was a little more friendly to him. I have him for 3,200 passing yards, 22 touchdowns. I have him for 988 rushing yards. I didn't quite give him that 1,000, but I don't care what they say. I don't think that man knows how to not run, so I expected another big running year for him. I have him coming in at 316 points, 316.8 points. They're at my number 9 spot.
All right, hit me with your number 8, Brant.
Number 8, got my boy. They're in Seattle. I expect you add Jackson Smith-Njigba, you add Zach Charbonnet, you add, a better pass catching back than Kenneth Walker. You add could be the best wide receiver in this class. I have Geno Smith sitting there at number 8. I have him going for 4,315 yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I have him adding 2. Let me make sure I'm on the right line here. I have him for 2 rushing touchdowns. That's it. And 300 rushing yards. He does have the ability, and he does scramble sometimes to get that first down. So I expect 300 rushing yards for him. But yeah, I've got Geno sitting there at number 8.
So for me, I'm not ready to christen Pete Carroll as the quarterback whisperer. I know it looks good. Geno had a great year last year, his career year. Russell had his worst year of his career. I still tend to believe those things are both flukes. I did give Geno a better stat line than I wanted to, honestly, just because of how good the pass catchers are around him. At the same time, though, Geno's never going to be what Russell was in Seattle, and Pete never let Russ cook because he's always wanted to be a run-first coach, and I expect that to be very similar this year. When you add a back at that high, I don't think you do that because you're not going to run the ball. I'm expecting this to be one of the highest run percentage teams on offense this year. I do think Geno's still relevant. I think he's going to have some good fantasy weeks as a quarterback, just not good enough for me to get inside my top 12. I think I do have him somewhere around the area of 17. So not as bullish on Geno as you are, Brant.
Okay.
For me at number 8, I have Justin Herbert. 4,666 yards, 12 touchdowns, 27 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, adding another 2 on the ground, coming in at 306.24 points for the season. So definitely another good year for Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
At number 7, I've got a guy that you talked about already, Brant, in Deshaun Watson. I also have him thinking he's going to bounce back, obviously, in a big way, getting a 17-game stat line here: 4,009 yards, 26 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. I have him adding 525 yards on the ground to go along with 4 touchdowns. I've got him coming in at 26.86 points. I think this is the year that, with Nick Chubb getting older in age, I think this is the year you start seeing Cleveland become a pass-first offense instead of a run-first offense. You got Amari Cooper, you've got Elijah Moore, you've got Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell, and David Njoku. I think the sky is the limit for this Browns offense.
Absolutely. I love Deshaun Watson. So it was at 7. Yeah, my number 7, I have this made me laugh when you already used his name down a little lower, and we had this argument just a few days ago, and I was not as high on him until I sat back, looked at his career stats, did some averaging, did some gut feelings. I got Mr. Dak Prescott sitting there at number 7. I have him throwing for roughly 4,200 yards, just a shade under 4,200 yards, 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. 8 rushing touchdowns. I think he uses his head a little more there on the goal line and bullies it in a little bit without Dak or without Elliott being there. I think you see a few more QB sneaks, a few more QB rollouts, because I don't have him for very many yards. I only have him for 270 rushing yards, but I do have him for that 8 rushing touchdowns. I just feel like they're going to use him a lot more on the goal line. So it's going to be, 3-4 yards maybe for a sneak or 1. I have him sitting there at 333 yards, which is funny because I have 6 and 7 separated by 1 point. And at my number 6 spot, I have Mr. Herbert there. I expect another big year for him. He is my second highest in passing yards. Total, I have him for 4,900 passing yards this year. I expect, the upgrade the addition of Quentin Johnston there. I expect him to still air the ball out. That team's been so pass friendly, so pass happy, even when they're down, even with the great running back they have with Eckler. They just seem to love to sling the ball. I have him for 4,900 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, and adding 2 more touchdowns on the ground rushing.
Okay. For me at 6, this quarterback is the epitome of rushing ability. I've got Justin Fields coming in at 17 games played, 3,242 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, but really saves his day with 924 rush yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, coming in at 316.08 fantasy points on the season. So picking up right where Justin Fields left off. At number 5, I have a guy, Brant, that you talked about a little bit ago. I just think this guy really comes into his own this year, cements his name. It's Trevor Lawrence. I've got Trevor Lawrence throwing for 4,480 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, adding another 313 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. I do think Ridley is going to be huge for this man. They lost nothing on offense. They added Ridley, who looks explosive in training camps. It should be extremely beneficial for him. He's got Evan Ingram back, Christian Kirk, you name it, coming back. So I just think this guy takes another step forward from where he ended last year. I've got him at 326.5 fantasy points.
Okay. They're at my number 5, right? 5. Yeah. I have the guy that I've been talking about all off season. And I think he takes that huge step forward. And that's Justin Fields. You had him sitting there at 6. I have him at number 5. But I have a lot of his work coming on the ground, as he is my highest rushing quarterback this year, with over 1,000 yards rushing. I have him for 10 rushing touchdowns. They just don't have that bully back. In my mind, Johnson could be that bully back, and if that turns in, I think his rushing touchdowns will come down. But I have him for 10 rushing touchdowns, along with over 1,000 rushing yards. I only have him for 2,850 as for his passing yards. I'm still not 100% sold on his accuracy and everything else, but I do have him at number 5. Once again, it's because of that rushing upside, and that's what you're going to see inside our top 5 is a lot of rushing quarterbacks. I have him statted for 347 points on the year.
All right, so now that we've both got our top 5, let's give a round out. I'll start first, Brant, 12 through 5, then you can hit yours. I've got Kirk Cousins, Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, so what I did notice before I hit this real fast is inside our top 10, we're pretty much same names, different spots. Points probably not too far off. My top 12 or 12 to 5 was Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Geno Smith, Dak Prescott, Justin Herberts, and Justin Fields there inside 12 to 5 there.
I think the only difference is I have Lawrence inside mine. You have Geno inside of yours. I think that's the only difference. So, yes.
Yeah.
So that means I'm guessing, unless one of us is absolutely doing something super crazy this year, our top 4 are going to be the same names as well, just probably a little different order. So, Brant, who do you have at number 4?
This one hurt putting him at number 4 because I wanted to put him higher since I own him. But that was Joe Burrow there at number 4. I have him for 4,610 passing yards, 36 touchdowns. I have an increase in his interceptions, if this is the correct one that I was looking at. I have him for 13 interceptions this year. I have him adding 6 rushing touchdowns and 221 rushing yards for 360.5 points.
360.5, you say? All right. Yep. I've got Joe Burrow at number 4 as well. I've got him throwing for 4,501 yards for 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 289 yards on the ground to go along with 4 touchdowns. Brant, I have him coming in at 360.94 points. So you and I are 4/10 difference there on Mr. Joe Burr. So I think that I would say that means that we both expect Cincinnati to have a good year and the weapons to be very, very reliable in fantasy as well there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
I know at this next spot we differ. So take me through your number 3 and I'll take you through mine next.
I have Josh Allen. And the only reason I really have Allen not at number 2 is I expect his rushing to come down just a little bit. I don't expect him to have to rush for as many touchdowns this year. I have him for 6 rushing touchdowns. I think that's his lowest in his career. I could be wrong. I don't have it right here in front of me. Excuse me. I am for 4,615 passing yards, 35 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 6 rushing touchdowns, 790 rushing yards for 367.6 points.
All right. I've got Josh Allen a slight bit higher. I have Jalen Hurts at 3. I've got Jalen Hurts throwing for 4,327 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, adding 717 yards on the ground to go along with 9 touchdowns. So I've got his rushing touchdowns coming down a little bit. I've got him coming in at 380.78 points this year. So obviously that means I think we're going to be consensus at 1, I would guess. Let's go to number 2, Brant. You justify why you have the player you do there, because I heard it pre-show, so unless you've changed it on me here, I think we just reversed our 2s and 3s.
I have Jalen Hurts at number 2. 13 rushing touchdowns is our biggest difference there. What did you have his projection at points-wise?
380.78.
So, yeah, and you had 9 touchdowns. I had 13 rushing. That's pretty much our difference there. 871 rushing yards, and I have them statted at 392.7 points. So not far off there. Rushing touchdowns is the biggest thing there.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Brant, and I
want you have him passing for quite a few more yards than I do too.
I want you to get a laugh on this. I want it to be on live on the YouTube channel forever, so you can come back and say this. I think Rashad Penny eats this year in Philadelphia. Not DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny.
I hope so.
As long as he's healthy, that's who I think gets the lion's share here. And I think he's going to be effective enough that Jalen Hurts doesn't have to run that awful much in the red zone. That's why that's genuinely why I had his rushing touchdowns come down from last year.
I hope you're right, because then I'm sitting there with Penny and Hurts in our league there. So I'll be perfectly okay with that.
All right. So at my number 2 spot, I have Josh Allen. I have him having a way bigger year than you do, I think. So I've got him throwing for 4,193 yards, 34 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 717 yards on the ground, 7 rushing touchdowns for 391.42 points.
Yeah, I mean, it's Josh Allen's, top 3 till Josh Allen is the top 3. 2, 3, possibly 1. It depends.
Let's be honest, we're going to have to go back and restat this if DeAndre Hopkins goes to any of the teams in our top 5, because that's going to make a difference for these guys too.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, I just read something on Twitter that the Lions are sniffing around adding him. That's going to boost golf up there for me too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's gonna change some things, and so we're consensus on number 1. I'm curious to hear what your stats are. Let's just go. First off, what's your projected points for Mr. Patrick Mahomes?
So I know we talked about this a little bit before the show. I couldn't quite get him to 300 or 400 or 400 total points. I've got him sitting at 392.4 total points.
All right, so we're 12 points difference. That's it. I got him at 404.7.
All right, Brant, I have him at 5,215 passing yards.
5,100.
Okay. I've got him at 39 touchdowns.
Oh, there's our difference. 40.
I've got him throwing 11 interceptions.
Nope, you fixed the difference. I only have 10.
I have him rushing for 318 yards.
367.
And 3 touchdowns.
4.
I'm going to be honest, Brant. This is where I'm at. Kadarius Toney, who they are parading as their wide receiver 1 going into the season. I've read this too many times now this offseason. That scares the ever-loving crap out of me as a Patrick Mahomes owner. I'm praying that Justin Ross, Rashee Rice, somebody, DeAndre Hopkins, please take yourself to Kansas City. Somebody goes in there that way Kadarius Toney's not the number 1. Maybe I'll be onto this at some point in the near future. I'm always late to get to the train station. We've talked about this before too. I just worry about Patrick Mahomes if they're going to run in with the game script of get the ball in Kadarius Toney's hand.
Yeah, I don't believe he's the number 1 there. I'm seeing. So this is me being the gambler that I am. You brought up Justin Ross, and if you've already looked, he's gone from like plus 1,500, 15,000, whatever, to already moving into the comeback player of the year conversation. So obviously he's had, a good few days there. This is just me looking into Vegas. I expect Ross to, boost up, and then they have who else is coming back? So they have Ross, and then they have
MVS,
Rashee
Rice, Sky Moore, Richie James.
Yeah, they added Richie James, who's coming off his career year. I still think you see Toney as of right now line up as the 1. But with that receiving core, you got so much quickness there. I expect, and let's not forget you have Travis Kelce,
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Oh, yeah.
Isaiah Pacheco.
Sorry.
Clyde Edwards probably won't even.
Thought we were on one there.
When we do our running backs, I doubt CEH even makes it on this cute little piece of paper that I type up.
Yep, same. All right, Brant. So we've gotten through our top 12 here. Again, we will sit down at some point and hammer out a consensus ranking. Let's talk about it real quick, though, since I brought him up and since he does make somewhat of a difference because he's still pretty dominant. I want you to tell me where you think DeAndre Hopkins goes, and then I want you to tell me where you want DeAndre Hopkins to go.
Where I think he goes is I think he goes to Dallas.
Okay.
I don't like it. I don't want him in Dallas. I just traded for Hopkins. I just took a lot of risk. You know my love for that man. I've had a great history in fantasy with DeAndre Hopkins. It's been a couple years since I've been a owner of DeAndre Hopkins in fantasy. I know that's rough words to use there, but I love Hopkins. I've loved him as a wide receiver. I loved him in Houston. My favorite place for him to go, Kansas City. How do you not want that man to match up to get with the best quarterback in the NFL? The man with one of the best hands in the NFL gets with the best quarterback. That's where I want him to go, but I seriously think he's going to wind up in Dallas.
Okay. So I also want him to go to Kansas City. I think it gives Patrick Mahomes that really good number 1 weapon outside of Travis Kelce. And again, it would give DeAndre Hopkins a career resurgence because let's be honest, Brand, if you're a defensive coordinator, are you scheming against DeAndre Hopkins or Travis Kelce when the Chiefs come to town? It's going to be Kelce.
I'm praying to everything holy that we could just stay in the game.
Right, exactly. So I want him to go to Kansas City. There's not much money there. I fear, and I think this could be a legit landing spot for him just because this was a team that I know the quarterback said they wanted to go get him. I worry about Baltimore, man. Just another good mouth, another big name. man, you could kill some fantasy stuff there. That's my worry, is that he ends up in Baltimore somehow, some way. So I'm going to say I think he goes to Baltimore, just because if I say it that way, it won't happen. Just like it won't happen if he goes to him going to Kansas City. But that's where I'm going to say I want him versus where I think he goes.
I'll cry.
Yeah,
I'll be sitting on that. I'll be sitting on that Rashad Bateman stone all over again, but with DeAndre Hopkins.
Right. All right. So I think that pretty well wraps up quarterbacks this week. Brant, I know we got to talk a little bit about what we've got going on for the next week. I'm thinking running back rankings are going to take us a little bit longer to get through than quarterbacks do. So we'll probably take a break next week, come at you with something a little bit different potentially. But we'll see what that is in between now and then. I wanted to remind everybody, if you have not yet, go subscribe to the Fantasy Holics podcast network YouTube channel. Screenshot you being a subscriber, send it to the inbox. Brant and I would love to get some more of these t-shirts out to some folks. We want to do a drawing in the next couple of weeks, at least before the season starts. But we're going to need to get some names in there. I think there's been a couple of you do it at this point, but we need some more of you to get that going. Doesn't take long to go over, throw a subscribe, and then again, you get alerts when these two beautiful faces go live. You get to chat with us on the sidebar here, as Jumbo did. We can even bring your comment up on the screen so you can see it, and America can see it. You can say you're on the Fatboyz YouTube video that way. So definitely jump on there and subscribe and let us know you did so.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely jump in with us. You'll get that update when the best looking duo on YouTube shows up and we're out there live for you, because I know that in season we go live every Sunday. When the games start rolling on Saturdays, we try to get live on Saturdays. We try to give you our best start sits. We're going to try to pump out the best shows we can. We have another show in the works that's going to hopefully be coming out shortly or closer to the season. That's going to put a lot of the Fantasy Holics faces out there, pump out some real good knowledge for you guys, real good fantasy advice. Next Sunday, I hope you're as excited as I am. Next Sunday, we are doing our first Dynasty startup draft for this season. It's not our first one. It's kind of a crazy league one of our buddies put together. Definitely we'll have some chit-chatting about that on Monday's show. But yeah, I know you're excited. It's draft season, boys, ladies and gentlemen. Send us all your questions. If you want to hear something on the show, don't hesitate to hit us up. That's about all I got. So if you don't have anything, Bo, I'm just going to sign it off. As always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.